I'm 82 years old, and when I die, probably sometime in the next few years, there won't be anyone to sort through my things or remember the stories I could have told. No children, no grandchildren, no family. I didn't plan for this to be my life. I spent 40 years waiting for the perfect time to have kids. That moment never came, not because life was cruel, because I kept moving the goalpost. This is what happens when you wait for perfect. My name is Eleanor. I live alone in a small apartment with 2 cats and a collection of books I've read 3 times each. No children, no grandchildren, no family gatherings at holidays. Just me. And when I die, probably sometime in the next few years, there won't be anyone to sort through my things or remember the stories I could have told. I didn't plan for this to be my life. When I was young, I assumed I'd have children. Everyone did back then. It wasn't a question of if, just when. But I was going to do it right. I was going to wait until I was ready, until everything was perfect. I met Thomas in 1964. I was 24, he was 27. We dated for 3 years, and he asked me to marry me when I was 27. I said yes. We got married in 1968, and everyone asked when we'd start having kids. I'd smile and say soon. We want to get settled first. Thomas wanted children right away. He'd talk about it over dinner, about what we'd name them, what kind of parents we'd be, but I kept putting him off. I'd say we needed to save more money first. We needed a bigger apartment. I needed to finish my degree. There was always a reason to wait. You see, I'd watched my mother struggle. She'd had 4 children by the time she was 30. My father worked in a factory and money was always tight. I remember her standing at the stove, exhausted, trying to stretch 1 chicken into dinner for 6 people. I remember her crying at the kitchen table over bills, and I promised myself I would never have children until I could give them everything, until I was financially stable, until I was ready. So Thomas and I waited. We both worked. I finished my degree and became a teacher. We saved money. We moved to a bigger apartment in 1972, and I thought, okay, maybe now. But then I got offered a position at a better school, more money, more responsibility, and I thought, just let me get established in this job first. Just 1 more year. Thomas was patient at first, but by 1975, when I was 35, he started getting frustrated. We'd have these conversations where he'd say, "Eleanor, when? When is the right time?" And I'd say, "Soon, I promise. I just need to make sure we're really ready." I know what you're thinking, that I was being practical, responsible, and maybe I was. But I was also scared. Scared that I wouldn't be a good mother. Scared that we didn't have enough money. Scared that having a child would derail my career. Scared that I'd end up like my mother, overwhelmed and resentful. In 1978, I turned 38. Thomas sat me down one evening and said we needed to make a decision. Either we were going to have children or we weren't, but we couldn't keep putting it off forever. I remember looking at him and thinking, 38 isn't that old. Women have babies in their late 30s all the time now. We still have time. But I didn't say yes. I said I needed to think about it. We just bought a house. I'd just been promoted to department head. I told him to give me 1 more year to get settled and then we'd start trying. Thomas left me 6 months later. He was 41 years old, and he told me he couldn't wait anymore. He said he'd spent 10 years of his marriage waiting for a life that I was never going to give him. He remarried 2 years later. His new wife was 32. They had 2 children. I'd see his Christmas cards sometimes, photos of his family, beautiful kids. He looked happy. After the divorce, I threw myself into work. I told myself I'd dodged a bullet, that I wasn't meant to be a mother anyway, that I was better off focusing on my career, my independence. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious, and whenever someone would bring up children, I'd say I'd never wanted them. It was easier than admitting the truth. The truth was, I did want them. I'd always wanted them. But I wanted them under perfect conditions, and perfect conditions never arrived. In my 40s, I told myself I was too old anyway. That ship had sailed. I focused on my nieces and nephews, my students. I convinced myself that was enough, that I could have a meaningful life without children of my own. In my 50s, I started seeing my friends become grandparents. They'd show me photos, talk about babysitting, about the joy of watching their children become parents, and I'd feel this ache in my chest that I couldn't quite name, but I'd push it down, tell myself I'd made my choice and I was fine with it. I retired at 65. I'd had a good career, saved well. I had enough money to live comfortably. I'd achieved everything I'd said I needed to achieve before having children, except by then I was 65 years old, and there were no children to share any of it with. Now I'm 82. I have plenty of money in the bank. I have a nice apartment. I have everything I thought I needed to be ready, but I don't have anyone to call on Sundays. I don't have anyone who remembers my birthday without Facebook reminding them. I don't have anyone who will go through my photos after I die and say, "This was my mom when she was young." Last year, I fell in my apartment. Nothing serious, just slipped on a wet floor. But I lay there for a few minutes before I could get up, and I thought, what if I couldn't get up? How long would it take for someone to notice I was missing? My neighbor checks on me once a week. My niece calls once a month. But if I died tomorrow, it might be days before anyone found me. That's when I really understood what I'd done. I'd spent my entire life preparing for a future that required perfect conditions, and while I was preparing, life happened. Time passed. My body aged. Possibilities closed. And I was so busy waiting for the right time that I missed the only time I actually had. If I could go back and talk to my 27-year-old self, the one who said yes to Thomas but no to starting a family, I'd tell her this: there is no perfect time. There will always be a reason to wait. You'll never have enough money. You'll never feel completely ready. Your career will always have one more milestone. Your apartment will never be quite big enough. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll wait forever. I'd tell her that my mother, the one I was so scared of becoming, had something I'll never have. She had chaos and noise and worry and exhaustion, but she also had Thanksgiving dinners with 20 people crammed around her table. She had grandchildren climbing on her lap. She had someone to call when she was lonely. She had a life full of people who loved her. And yes, she struggled. Yes, it was hard. But at the end of her life, she wasn't alone. I see young people now, especially women in their 30s, and I hear them saying the same things I said. I'll have kids once I'm more established in my career, once I've traveled more, once I've bought a house, once I've saved more money, once I meet the perfect partner. And I want to shake them. I want to tell them that all of those things are excuses wrapped up as reasons. I'm not saying have kids before you're ready. I'm not saying ignore practical considerations. But I am saying that if you actually want children, if that's something you genuinely desire, don't wait for perfect, because perfect doesn't exist, and the clock doesn't stop while you're figuring that out. I waited for financial stability. I have it now. I waited to be established in my career. I was for 30 years. I waited to feel ready. I never did, and now it doesn't matter because I'm 82 and that possibility is gone. The right time isn't when everything is perfect. The right time is when you want something enough to do it even when conditions aren't ideal. The right time is when you're willing to be scared and uncertain and still move forward. The right time is when you stop waiting and start living. I can't get those years back. I can't go back to 1975 and tell Thomas yes. I can't undo 40 years of choosing perfect conditions over actual life. But maybe you can. Maybe you can stop waiting for a moment that's never going to arrive and start building the life you actually want with the time you actually have. If this meant something to you, subscribe and leave a comment. Tell me what you're waiting for. And if you know someone who keeps saying not yet, share this with them, because I don't want anyone else to get to 82 and realize they waited themselves right past the life they wanted. Thanks for listening.